Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Chronicles from the Kit. It is 1 year since I started this little series of mine, and I decided to make this a special episode where I asked friends to ask any questions they would have of me. And so I wrote them down so that way I didn't have to flip through notes and phones and all that stuff to be able to get the answers. I wrote them down on a piece of paper so they're nice and organized and I know what to ask and all that stuff. So quite a few friends have asked me quite a few questions, so I'm happy to answer them, and we'll get started. The first question is from my good friend Matt Baca. He's like a brother to me. Excuse me. I've done some music with him, cut a record with him down in Florida. That's where he is. And so his questions that he has here, one of them is, were you always drawn to music? This is the first question he asks, and I answer with, yes, I always have been drawn to music. I always loved music. Music has been a part of my life ever since I can remember. And even before the music memories kicked in, my uncle told me that whenever music was on the radio or on the stereo or whatever, he said I would stand in front of the speaker and rock back and forth on time to the beat while the music was playing. So yeah, music has always been a part of my life, and I've always been drawn to it. So no matter what style. He goes, what specifically drew you to the drums? I'd have to say my dad, Keith LeBlanc. He's the one that really got me into it, and I remember him, setting up his kit in the living room, and then he'd have the record player, but it'd be up high, so when he would hit, it wouldn't skip. So the record player would be way up here, and he'd play along to the music that was on there, but also the TV was going, So I just have really fond memories of that happening, and and it wasn't until we were at a Holiday Inn in New York. I was 2 years old or something like that, and the next morning I see all this drums spread out on the bed. I think he was changing the drum heads, and so that's what really got me into drumming was seeing that, So he also asked, which was part of the second question, was it a concert, an album? Oh no, this is the next question, separate from that one. Sorry. He goes, was it a concert or an album that made you want to do it professionally? No, it's always been there. I've always wanted to do it professionally ever since I was a kid. I always wanted to have music be a part of my life and try to make money with it. Didn't really know how to do that. It just kind of put my hustle out there and do it because I just have a love of music. I mean, I've always wanted to. There are other things I wanted to do. I wanted to be a chef at one time. So my mom, she would always have me make all these different meals and all that stuff. But it always came back to drums and music. I always had a love for it. So I was like, you know what? I grew up in a household. It was like, if there's something that you love to do, you might as well make money doing it. So I took that advice and I ran with it, and still running with it. When doing music, was it casual at first, or did you always have a desire, or just a deep knowing that this is what you're meant to do with your life? A combination of all three. There was a desire for it, but it was also casual because I grew up with music in the household, always had drums around. So I was always playing, I was always hitting on things. So it definitely started off as casual. and it was a desire. You know, I always wanted to do more with it and had these dreams and accomplish some of those dreams. There are bigger dreams that I have and hope to accomplish one day. And yeah, there's just a deep knowing that this is what I wanted to do because it's so embedded in me that this is what I love to do, you know? So, and it says, what was the first group you were a part of? Ooh. I was part of the worship team at church when I used to go to Fellowship of Life in Cheshire. You know, that was one of them. Being a part of the school band, that was probably my very first. But as far as an actual rock and roll band or whatever, I tried to start bands in high school, but some of my friends, they didn't take it too seriously. So yeah, the first serious band that I was in was a band called Breach. And so we did not last more than 6 months. We had this gig all scheduled to do in Maine, and then the guitar player, he got in trouble. You know, we're all teens. He got in trouble, so we couldn't do the gig, and that was kind of the end of that band. And then that's when UGG started with Mike Rogers and Josh Renker. So that was more long lasting than Breach. So I guess UGG would be my very official first band that I was a part of. So Matt, thank you for the questions. Another question comes from my buddy Ozzy Hanchard. Ozzy's a great dude. Every time we get together, we always tell the most ridiculous, acerbic jokes, and it's a fun time. Very good friend, a great musician. So he's got a couple questions for me. He says, "What is the best way to practice to get faster with paradiddles and offbeat timing?" Well, with paradiddles, you can think of paradiddles as a groove. So for those of you who don't know and who are watching, a paradiddle is a rudiment, and it pretty much goes right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Okay, or you could start it with your left hand. Left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right. So you could turn that into a groove, and the best way to do that the best way to develop your speed is to do it with a click, and then slowly, as you get comfortable, slowly start speeding it up until you get comfortable there, so on and so forth, until you get it at the speed that you would like it. So as far as like offbeat timing, odd time meters, doesn't necessarily have to do with speed. It's just getting comfortable listening and feeling what 3/4 feels like, or 6/8, or 5/8, or 5/4, 7/8. So those are. It's just a matter of getting comfortable listening to them, playing along with records that have a lot of odd time signatures. So you kind of just feel the pulse and just be able to get comfortable playing with it. So the best way to do that is play to some fusion records that has a lot of odd timing to it. And you can get comfortable that way and kind of feel the pulse of how they're subdividing those the timing. So, and he asked the question, how do you get faster with the double kick? I haven't used double kick in a while. I've been thinking about going back to it. Again, same answer. Play with the click, do some rudiments, like stick control is great for that. And just start off slow because you want to sound comfortable. You want it to be clear what you're playing. You don't want it to sound sloppy. And as you get comfortable with that one speed, go a little bit faster till you get comfortable there, so on and so forth. So, thank you, Ozzy, for your questions. Another few questions comes from my friend Elena Miles. She's a great friend of mine. Known her since we were in youth group, teenagers, all that stuff. We always tell acerbic jokes, send each other acerbic memes to each other, so it's a lot of fun when we do that. She has a few questions for me. She asks, "What age was the first time you held a drumstick? And did you realize you love playing drums?" I kind of answered that in Matt's question. I don't remember the age where I first held a drumstick. It was probably when I was 2, maybe a little bit younger. You know, my dad had put it in my hands, and he'd sit me on his lap and copy the rudiments that he was playing. And I think my love for the drums again came from, it just kind of made sense to me. It just clicked with me when, again, we were at the Holiday Inn and I saw his drums spread out when he was changing the heads. That's when I knew that's what I wanted to play, and had a love for drumming. The next question is, are there any favorite drummers that you admired or wanted to emulate? Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, people like my dad, Vinny Colaiuta, he's another one. Jeff Beccaro, the late great Jeff Beccaro, he's another one. Buddy Miles was huge, was very instrumental in how I play today. If you're not familiar with Buddy, he played with Jimi Hendrix in the band The Gypsies. Check that stuff out. Jeff Beccaro with Toto, and Vinny just records about with anybody. Yeah, so there's a lot of drummers that I'm definitely hugely influenced by and tried to emulate. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, I want to sound like me. I don't want to copy anybody else. I want to sound like Chuck Peterson. I want to be a number one me, not a number two somebody else. So I'm still trying to discover my sound, who I am as a drummer. So that's how I'll answer that one. She asks, what are the 5 songs you enjoy hearing the drums on? Ooh, okay. So one that comes to the top of my head is a song called Blues MD by a super group, a fusion super group called Jing Chi, which is Vinny Colaiuta, Jimmy Haslip, and Robin Ford. It's off the Live at Yoshi's album. Go ahead and check. That whole record is great. You know, go check that out. The whole record's slamming. But Blues MD, I love that tune because everybody takes a solo, and the solos in that song are just masterful by everybody. So I enjoy listening to the keyboard solo, the bass solo, the sax solo, the guitar solo, and Vinny Colaiuta's drum solo. It's very tasteful. It's simple, but very complicated at the same time. You know, there's a spot in there where he's hitting the bass drum in the ride, and he's slowing it down, which is interacting with what the bass player is playing, and it just sounds amazing. So that's one of them. Another one has to be "Moanin'" by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. Reason why I like that tune is his swing shuffle is just crazy, and it's so solid, and that's kind of how I play. Especially when it comes to jazz, I relate to Art Blakey's jazz playing more than any other drummers because it's got a groove to it. It's got a groove to it. So "Moanin'" is another great song to dig on. The Roots. That's another one that's come up. The Roots, Questlove on drums, of course. A song called "Rising Up" on the Rising Down album. A song called "Rising Up." I love that tune because, you know, it's got that hip hop in there, but the hip hop going along with a go-go groove. You know, so that whole record is great. The Rising Down album, that whole album is great. Dig on that, and yeah, the song "Rising Up," that's a great tune for me. So I think I gave 3, so 4. Oh man, you're really making me think. Really making me think because there's so much. I have to say, King's X, the song called Far, Far Away. The time signatures in that song are crazy, but the drums, Jerry Gaskell on drums, great drummer, one of my favorites, very unique playing. The drumming on that is so solid, the timing is so solid and everything is so tight. So that's a song that you should definitely check out, Far, Far Away, one of my favorite King's X tunes. And so one more. I would have to say, off the top of my head, the Beatles, Ringo Starr, the song "I Want You, She's So Heavy." I love Ringo's groove on that because it's so slick and it's so smooth and solid, and it's one of those tunes that just makes me bob my head like this every time I hear it. So sometimes I'll play that song over and over again just because the drumming on that is just incredible. So those are my 5. Elena, thank you so much for your questions. I really appreciate it. Going on to the next one, my boy Asa Black. I've known this kid since junior high school, and we did our orchestral concert. So he showed up for that. He shows up to pretty much all the gigs I invite him to. So he's just a good dude. An artist. He's a writer himself. So he has grown up being mixed child. He goes, do you think it affected your influence in music? I do have some mixture in me. I did one of those spit tests, so there's a lot of different things I have going on. And I'm definitely on the lighter side. My dad used to call me the color of a coffee cake muffin. So yes and no, because being in junior high school when I was, listening to rock and roll, because I was listening to everything, but I was also listening to rock and roll. So a lot of the black kids, they didn't understand. Why are you listening to that? You should be listening to rap. And I said, well, I do listen to rap, but you also have to remember that black people invented rock and roll too. So they didn't realize that. But a lot of my white friends, growing up when I was a kid, they didn't understand me listening to, like Michael Jackson or Prince or whatever, or, Gap Band. They didn't understand that. It was like, oh, you should be listening to Guns N' Roses and Bon Jovi and all that stuff. So my wires always got crossed, but I grew up listening to everything though. It didn't matter who cut it. It just, if it was good music, it was good music. So, and that's how I feel today. That's still how I feel today. There's only 2 types of music. There's good music and bad music. So I really don't believe in genres. I believe in 2 genres, and that's good music and bad music. So I like to fuse different genres together, and make something new and creative and all that stuff. Like there was a Christian pop punk band that I played in, and one of the songs that they had was very punk, but I put a reggae groove to it, and they were shocked. They were like, but they're like, that actually really sounds good, and they wanted me to do that. So that's what I did with my time with them. So thank you, Asa, for your question. Great seeing you, and always good to see you when we get together. So let's do that more often. My friend Mimi Caban, she put, what are the reasons you have refused to play with me over the years? That's a question I like to have answered. Mimi, she's a great musician, a great songwriter. She's always trying to get me to do something, but she lives out of state, so some of the times it's just not, convenient for me to go out there because of time, because of stuff I have to do the day after. It just never worked out. But I did tell her, she needs stuff recorded. I could always record it here in Connecticut. So, so I always did tell her that. But sometimes live shows it's hard to do. Especially with having a crazy schedule already. It's just hard to get together with people especially when they need it. It's just chalk it up to bad timing. That's all it is. So, I knew she'd throw that in there as a little zinger. This one comes from a student of mine, Tyler Lasky. Tyler's a great student. He started off playing drums not knowing anything, and now he's jamming out with his dad, his grandfather, with some friends. He's trying to start a band with some schoolmates. So his groove, he's got a great groove. And this is a kid who came from not knowing anything about the drums, not knowing about timing, and he's just killing it right now. So he's still learning, but he's picking it up really quick. So Tyler's question is, besides your dad, who are your drumming influences? Which I kind of answered some of that earlier, but I'll answer this one more in depth. Let me put it this way. My drumming influences are drummers who find themselves and create their own sound where when you hear them, you know it's them. Guys like Steve Gadd, guys like Vinny Colaiuta, guys like Jeff Porcaro. He said, besides my dad is definitely one of them because he definitely had his own sound. A lot of people copied my dad's sound. After the whole Sugar Hill thing, they sampled his stuff, or they programmed drums to sound like my dad's drums. Keith Carlock. I'm going to mention some friends of mine. Tony Lewis definitely has his own sound. Brian Dunn, who's a drummer for Daryl Hall, and who was in Hall & Oates and Live from Daryl's House. Definitely a unique drummer. I love the way he plays. So I told him, I said, I have to pick your brain about some things because I just love the way he phrases his drum solos and all that stuff. So Nate Smith, he's another one. John Bonham, great groove. Definitely, you could tell it's him. Again, Buddy Miles, he was like heavily influential on how I play. And so, because he definitely has his own sound, just had that deep pocket, which is the kind of drumming that I love. So Art Blakey, again, he played those swing patterns like nobody else. He just made it groove and it was just solid. It was right there. So I that's the kind of swing that I identify with most, as opposed to like Elvin Jones, where they got or Roy Haynes, the late Roy Haynes, where they could play the timing all over the place but still be on it. I can't accomplish that. So, so those, there's many more, but just pretty much guys who have their own sound. I think I mentioned Keith Carlock. He's another one. Steely Dan, a drummer for Steely Dan. But those who have their own distinct sound. Bernard Purdy is another one. So those who have their own distinct sound when they play, those are the guys that I listen to the most, because then it encourages me to find my own way and to sound like me, So, so those are the guys that I listen to. Another one comes from a Facebook friend. I never met her in person. She's always commenting on my drum page, being very encouraging. Elaine Martin, she asked a couple questions. She goes, do you ever get stage fright? Depends on the gig. It depends on the gig. I used to get really nervous playing in front of my dad, especially if he was in the front row, because he would always tease me. He'd go, I'm going to be front and center, watching everything you play, and I want nothing but 100% pure perfection, and that would freak me out. So I see him in the front row, and I'm like, oh God, But and it's funny because I've played in front of famous people before, and I've played with a few famous people before, but never got stage fright or as nervous as if my dad was in the audience. If my dad was in, of course I got nervous, but other than that, not really. It's just a natural thing for me. playing the Hartford Jazz Festival, yeah, that was kind of nerve-wracking. Playing Daryl's house, with Elliot, that was a little nerve-wracking too. But you know, but once I started playing, it was great. But when I started playing with my dad watching, that's a whole different story. It's like, okay, like, don't mess up, But I tried not to think about that. So her next question was, how young were you when you started playing? Sorry, I get tongue-tied a little bit. Again, I started when I was 2. I started when I was 2 years old, maybe a little bit sooner, 2, 3 years old. I don't know. I just know I started very young. I just remember music always being a part of my life, drums always being a part of my life. My dad got me into that. She asked, "Were you in the crib?" Probably. I couldn't tell you. And she asked, "Any other family members besides your dad play musical instruments?" Actually, yes. My mom, excuse me, my mom, she plays keyboards and she sings. My mom, she was always a singer. I remember her singing around the house, still sings around the house. She started getting into playing keyboards. I taught her a few things because I was taking keyboard lessons in college. But then she surpassed me. She knows a lot more than I do, playing the keys. But my brothers, my brother Andre, he was in the music industry for a while. I don't remember what he was doing. I know he was making music, making grooves on the keyboard and all that stuff. And we talked about getting together. He's thinking about getting back into it. And my other brother, Antoine, he's a rapper, or used to be. So hopefully he'll get back into that. And he was really good too. We talked about doing some things together. Justin and Kuga. I think Kuga was into guitar a little bit, but not too much. He's more into technology and all that stuff. And Justin, I don't think he ever really got into music. But I have cousins who were into it. My cousin Jermaine, he used to rap. So yeah, no, I have a very, very musical family, and so even finding out information about ancestors who were musicians and all that stuff. So that's really cool it's definitely in my blood to do this. My friend Lori LaBelle, of course, she's going to throw in a zinger for me. She goes, "If a woodchuck could chuck wood, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck?" 8 maybe? 8 pieces, She probably should have asked, how many drumsticks can you play with at one time? I've actually done playing, there's a cover band I used to be in after I graduated college, and we did late in the evening. So Steve Gadd, when he played that tune, he used 2 pairs of sticks. So he was using 4 sticks and make it sound like more than one drummer. So I think 4 is the most I've done. So I may have said 8, but 4. Maybe I'll try to play with 8 sticks one day if it calls for it. So that's a good question. I could do that to her because she's a good friend of mine. We've known each other for years, and we always crack on each other. Okay. So another one comes from Alan Munger, another Facebook friend, drummer. He asked me, he goes, if money and availability were no problem, what kit, including cymbals and heads, would you play? Actually, the kit that I have now, that I used to play out, like this is my home kit, my practice kit. I have some of my dad's drums in the other room, which I'll probably set up pretty soon and practice on that. But it's a kit that I have now. It's a Gretsch USA custom. Beautiful color. So I use that for gigs and recordings. They sound great recording. I used to use these. These are the Gretsch Catalina Birch. I used to use those for recording because they translated well in the studio. But I'm digging the sound of of the USA Custom, both studio and live. So Andrew Shreve from Gretsch, I'm working with him to have him build me another USA Custom kit for the studio made out of its natural wood. So that's what I'm working on. I use all Paiste cymbals. I use different cymbals for different situations because I play all different types of music. So I'm not going to use softer cymbals for a rock session or a rock gig, and vice versa. I'm not going to use rock cymbals for an R&B or pop gig. But I use all Pisces. I've been with Pisces for, I think, 12 years now. It's been 12 years since I've been with them. So, been with that family, and it's been a great ride. So it's the kit that I have now. I'm very blessed to be able to use the kit, to use my dream kit, and to play it on gigs when I can. He goes, do you have big kit, small kit? Well, it depends on the gig again. If I'm gonna do a funk gig, I'm not gonna have a 6-piece. I'll probably bring a kick snare, a hat, a floor tom, and a ride cymbal, maybe a crash, just to kind of have tonality. And he asks, can you do it all on one kit or multiple kits for different styles? I would like to try to do it on one kit, because Gretsch is great for all different types of music, but if I'm doing like a jazz gig, like a straight ahead jazz gig, and I wanted a smaller kit or something like that, I might go for like, a bop kit or something like that, where it has that sound, that old school jazz sound. But you can still do that with the Gretsch by tuning the heads really tight, and you get that doom doom doom. So you'll get the sound that you want. And he goes, what do you think of the micro bop kits with the 16-inch bass drum? Again, great for jazz playing, and I love the 16-inch bass drum because it packs a powerful punch. Where it has that tone, and it has that overtone. It's like boom, 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 boom. Or like you hear on the old jazz records, and even on some of the old Motown stuff. You can hear a lot of that. So it's all gravy. It's all good to me. So I'm always up for playing different type kits for different musical situations and all that stuff. But my preference is Gretsch drums all the way. So if I could do it with a Gretsch, I will. Another great friend of mine. We're coming to the end here. Another great friend of mine. Here we go. Get my merds wixed again. Chris Tallerdy. Sorry, Chris Tallerdy. He's a great friend of mine. Met him through my buddy Roland. I went to go see his band play at metal. It's a metal band, and he's a great drummer. Whole band sounded great. So he's just all around great dude. So he has a few questions for me. He goes, what was the best, worst advice you were given from another drummer? I guess the worst advice wouldn't be advice. It would just be watching. Be watching how other drummers, if they're acting in a way that's inappropriate on a gig or anything like that, that's a mental note where I have to say, okay, don't ever do that, The best advice, man, it's all great advice, Even the bad ones are great advice because it shows you what not to do. So, but any advice I could soak up. My dad used to give me a lot of advice, about being in the music industry, showing up on time, doing whatever the producer wants, or or whatever the band leader wants, that kind of thing. It's all good advice to me, and to really pay attention and to really hone in on those things to help you to become a better musician. I think I've been thrashed. If I played terribly, I've been thrashed about it. People come up to me and say, "Hey, man, that really sucked. You need to work on this. You need to listen to this. You need to listen to this drummer. You need to listen to that drummer. You need to listen to the relationship between the drummer and all that stuff." Where I felt like I was being torn down, but really they were saying, "No, we see potential in you. You got to do better." So even down to like drum setup, I got great advice on that. So it's all, I can't name just one because it's all good, and there's so many that's floating through my head. He also asked, upon your years of playing, how many different size sticks did you play until you found the ones you were comfortable with, the ones that you use now? Ooh, that's a very good question. So when it comes to finding the right size stick for you, you have to know your body. You have to know your fingers. Me, I have short, fat fingers. I hate my fingers. I got fingers of a little kid. It's disgusting. So yeah, I went through all the searches of using, like the 2Bs. I'd use like the Regal Tip 2B because they were very light, but they were very thick. But that wasn't working for me. I've used like the 6As. I've used 5Bs, 5As, 8As. I was using 8As for quite a while, and then, but they all just wasn't happening for me because I couldn't get the speed that I wanted. So I started going to lighter sticks because one, they'll fit my fingers, not so much. It's almost close to a 7A, which is like, again, like kid-sized sticks, but it works for me. But I'm with Innovative Percussion right now. I'm with that family. They took me in, and so I went down to their factory and checked out some of the different size sticks that they had, because they had the 8As, but they were a little bit too thick and heavy for my liking. So they had me try the sticks called the Smooth Ride. It took me a minute to get used to, but I was like, oh, this really works for me. Works for my fingers, and it works for the speed, and I can play any type of music. I'm not a basher or anything, but I can comfortably get around the kit with no pain and all that stuff. So the Innovative Percussion Smooth Ride has been the one that I've been using lately, and it's been working for me perfectly. So one day I may go to them and have like custom made sticks, but I think I need to be famous for that, and I'm not famous. He also asks, do you have any embarrassing moments while playing either on stage or in the studio? Nothing in the studio, but there was one gig that comes to mind where I was playing. Again, this is with this Christian pop punk band. We were up in New Hampshire, and we were playing a show to like 400 to 500 kids. And as soon as we were done, we were walking off the stage, and I missed a step, and boom, fell flat on my face off the stage onto the right down at the bottom, and I just hear all 500 of those kids go like that. So I was like, oh, how am I gonna handle this when I get up? So I jumped right back up. Excuse me. I jumped right back up, and I go, and now for my next trick, and got a nice big laugh out of that. So that kind of diffused that situation a little bit. That's really the only embarrassing thing that's happened to me. I was almost left behind at a gig one time, with the same band. They forgot I wasn't in the car, so I had to run after them to go because they were waiting in line to get out, because it was a festival. So it was it was Soul Fest. Yeah, that's where it was. It was Soul Fest. So yeah, that was fun. So those are the only two embarrassing stories that I can think of, or that I may tell you that I can think of. But really, there's more, and I just don't want to share. Thank you, Chris, for your questions. Wonderful, wonderful questions. And the last set of questions come from my good friend Renee Gardner. Sorry, my tongue is acting up on me. Renee Gardner, great friend, wonderful singer, huge King's X fan, so we have that in common. We always see each other at King's X shows. She's asked a few questions here. She goes, where was the best place you played and why? There's quite a few places that I've played that were really cool. And I think a lot of it is because it was a dream of mine to play at these places. One of them was the Hartford Jazz Festival. I remember going to the Hartford Jazz Festival as a kid, and I was like, oh, one day I want to play up there, and finally did back in 2017 with Nelson Garcia. And so that was a wonderful experience. Another one has to be, Daryl's house. Played there quite a few times with Elliot Lewis, who was on the show live from Daryl's house, and and was in Hall & Oates band. And so never in my life did I think the first time I go to Daryl's house would be to play with Elliot, so that was cool, and got to play there with Thaddeus Black. So another place is the Baked Potato in Studio City, California, in LA. All of my heroes, they have played there. Guys like Jeff Beccaro, guys like Vinny Colaiuta, guys like Carlos Vega, the late great Carlos Vega, Abraham Laboriel Jr. and Sr. They play there all the time. So that was a cool place to play. You just felt the magic of that place. A lot of records came out of that place. And so that was a really cool experience, just to be able to play with guys from LA, and for people to enjoy what I actually did, even though I flubbed the drum solo, probably because I was nervous, about playing there. But yeah, everybody dug what I was doing, so that was a huge compliment. Yeah, there's a lot of places, and I'm sure there's going to be more places I'll get to play. I've never been to Block Island, and so by the time this airs, I will have already played there. But I'm on my way there to play with Elliot. Play there again. So it would be my first time at Block Island. So my first time there to play. That's such an honor. So yeah, there's quite a few places. I probably don't remember them all, but those are the ones that stand out to me. And again, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more. And she asks, when did you decide you wanted to be a career musician? I remember the specific moment. There was a great place in Southington, Connecticut called Pappy's. That place was just happening. I wish that place was still open, because there was always something to do on a Friday night. If you were bored and there was nothing else to do on a Friday night, you go to Pappy's, and that place was packed. It was packed there in the afternoon. It was just one of those great places. I only played there once, but that was an acoustic gig, but I wanted to get my friend's band to play in there, which never happened. But I was sitting there one time, and I was watching the band play. Some of my friends were off doing something else, but I was just kind of sitting there by myself and listening to the music, and that's when I really decided. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do, and pretty much said a prayer and asked God. I said, Lord, if this is what you want me to do, then please make a way for it to happen. And Jesus, he's been great. He's been making things happen for me. There's been some struggles on the way, I will admit that, but overall, I'm getting to do what I love, and and I know there's more to come, and I'm just got to keep on my grind. So that was a defining moment for me. And she asked, aside from permanent injury, is there anything that would make you stop playing? No, nothing can make me stop playing, because I've been doing this my whole life. You know, I remember this one guy. He came and did a clinic at the college I was at, and he was talking about being passionate about music. And he said, well, you know, when he dated his wife, he told her right off the bat, he goes, if you ever make me choose between you or my music, he goes, I'm going to choose my music first, because I've been doing this longer than I've known you, you know? And so I always took that under advisement for me. You know, it's like, you know, if it does come time where I do find that special woman in my life, you know, hopefully she'll be along for the ride with me, and she'll support me in what I want to do, and I would do the same for her. I support her with what she wants to do. So, no, there's nothing that'll make me stop playing except for death. You know, but even then, you know, I'll be up in heaven jamming on the drums with my dad and with all my heroes that have gone before me. So that would be a great little drum circle, great huge drum circle, I should say. She asked me, what is your favorite groove to play? My favorite groove to play is the grooves that I come up with for songs for my band. Those are my favorites, because, not to sound pretentious, but because I came up with it. It's something that was like, oh, okay, I've created something. You know, it all goes back to discovering who I am as a drummer in my own individualistic personality. She asked the same question about songs. What is your favorite song to play? Again, the songs that us as Thaddeus Black, that we create. Those are my favorites because we created them. You know, we you know, God has given us a gift of music to be able to create these songs and present them to people when we can. So, yeah, those are my favorite songs to play, and those are my favorite grooves to play. Is ones that I come up with. There's a song, shameless plug. There's a song called "Consideration" by my band Thaddeus Black, and that's a groove that I came up with when I was in junior high school. You know, working on flams. You know, it's just kind of like a three-way flam exercise that I turned into a groove. So you can check that song out, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So it's things like that's very fulfilling to me, to be able to do that and to share it with everybody. So those are all the questions that have come in. I know there's more that people that want to send in, but they couldn't think of any questions to ask. That's okay. Maybe we'll do this again next year. I don't know. But I just want to thank everybody for a year of support. Again, this series started because of my dad. He started this, but he also got it from, I forgot his Tales from the Tour Bus, you know, which had all these like funk stories, and they were like cartoons and all that stuff. So that inspired him to do that, and then after he passed away, it inspired me to do this, the Chronicles from the Kit. And so thank you all who sent in questions. Sorry for the long rants. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for 1 year of watching this and commenting and supporting my music, supporting my band, supporting me playing drums and all that stuff. So I will be back next month with a new episode, some fresh stories for you, and God bless you guys. Thank you again, and I will see you next month. Hey gang, this is a postscript from a question I had gotten earlier about which song I like to listen to for the drums. These two I actually meant to mention earlier, but I did not. So I'm going to mention them now as an honorable mention. One of them is the studio version of Jimi Hendrix and the Band of Gypsies, Message to Love. And that's with Buddy Miles and drums. And so, like, the hi-hat groove on that is just crazy insane, and some of the insane weird time that they put in there in the midsection of that song. You should definitely check that one out. And another one is Nick Kershaw from the album The Works. One song with Jeff Porcaro on it called Walkabout. He plays, I think, the greatest Purdy shuffle on that particular tune, and just how it relates to the rest of the tune and what's going on instrumentally with that song. So that's another song you should check out. So I just wanted to add that postscript. This is later on in the evening. I just got home from work, playing drums for 3.5 hours straight. I'm exhausted, and I'm going to bed. Good night.